Okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Na Huang. I'm with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Please note that this online public hearing is being recorded. Before we begin the hearing, I want to share a few logistics on the Zoom meeting features and how this meeting will run. To minimize the background noise, currently all attendees in this meeting are on mute. However, there will be an opportunity to provide oral testimony. If you have joined online, please enter your name and affiliation in the chat box located in the chat bar of the Zoom control panel on your computer, or at the top right of your mobile device by clicking the chat bubble icon. If you would like to testify, type testify after your name. If you're having trouble finding the chat box on your computer, try clicking on the more icon to see additional control. The chat function should only be used to provide your name and indicate you wish to testify. The chat is not to be used to provide a written testimony. Information on where to send written comments will be provided during this hearing. If you're on the phone, we will unmute callers one at a time to ask for this information and provide an opportunity for testimony. Oh, sorry about that. Now we begin the hearing. This is a public hearing held by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. My name is Na Huang, and I'm the hearing officer on this matter. With me on the hearing panel today are Haiti Janik and Sharon Weber, and Jenny Ottman. Sorry about that. We'll be calling on those who indicate they wish to testify. We are here today at 10 a.m. on February 1st, 2022, on an online public teleconference to accept testimony on emergency amendments to Massachusetts Regulation 310 CMR 7.40 Low Emission Vehicle Program. These amendments were adopted as an emergency regulation on December 30th, 2021 under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A. Emergency regulations become effective upon filing. However, within 3 months, the agency must complete the public review process. Therefore, on December 30th, 2021, MassDEP issued a notice of public hearing on the emergency regulations to adopt California's Advanced Clean Trucks Regulation, Heavy Duty Omnibus Regulation for heavy duty engines and vehicles, and Phase 2 Greenhouse Gas Regulation for medium and heavy duty engines and vehicles. The regulations will reduce emission of criteria pollutants and GHG from on-road medium heavy duty engines and vehicles. Sorry about that. Improving air quality and reducing their contribution of climate change. The purpose of this hearing is to solicit comments on the emergency regulation. If anybody wants to provide comments on this regulation prior to the end of the public comment, I'm sorry, my screen keep on like. If anyone wants to provide comments on the regulation prior to the end of the public comment period and needs interpreter services, MassDEP provides language access, interpreter translation services to limit English proficient individuals free of charge. Information about these interpreter translation services is available on MassDEP webpage. Notice of this hearing was published in the Boston Globe, January 1st, 2022, and the Worcester Telegram and Gazette on January 4th, 2022. Notice was also emailed to interested parties. The amendments, background information, and public notice was made available at MassDEP's website at https://www.mass.gov/service details/MassDEP public hearings comment opportunities. Testimony may be presented orally at this hearing today. We will accept written testimony until 5 p.m. on Friday, February 11th, 2022. This is the date and the time by which any written comments must be received by MassDEP. It is not a postmarked date. Please submit written testimony electronically to me at ngoc.hoang@mass.gov. Or if you wish to submit written testimony on paper, please mail it to Na Huang, Mass, Department of Environmental Protection, 1 Winter Street, 6th floor, Boston, Mass. 02108. Comments sent to any other email or address may not be received in time to be included in the official docket. In a moment, we will begin to unmute online participants who have indicated they wish to provide oral testimony. Once all online participants who have indicated they wish to testify have done so, we will call on the phone participants who wish to testify to identify themselves and ask them to present the oral testimony. Jenny, do you know how many people have indicated that they would like to testify?
14.
Okay, great. I will now open testimony.
So first we have City Councilor Alicia Bowman.
Good morning. I'm also joined by Councilor Downs, who's going to start for us.
Thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Andrea Downs, and I'm joined by Alicia Bowman, and we are city councilors from Newton. We are grateful for the opportunity to weigh in on these important regulations. We recognize the damage that diesel emissions pollution does to vulnerable communities and children across the state. But Newton too is affected as our community straddles the Mass Pike, Route 128 and Route 9, all of which carry a significant amount of truck traffic near Newton homes and school children.
Newton recognizes the importance of transitioning to all electric vehicles, but most especially large diesel vehicles. We have large fleets that operate in and through our city, and public school buses and DPW fleet, college shuttle buses and private employer shuttles, as well as delivery trucks for our many businesses and nearly 90,000 residents. Currently, we have a few efforts underway that we believe will be helped by these regulations to electrify our school bus fleet and to electrify the local college and employer shuttles. These regulations you are considering will enhance and accelerate these efforts by increasing the supply of heavy-duty electric vehicles and coordinate efforts to improve charging infrastructure. We both thank the MassDEP and the administration for moving quickly to adopt the Advanced Clean Trucks, ACT, and heavy-duty omnibus regulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tim French.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. Great. Good morning. My name is Tim French, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Truck and Engine Manufacturers Association. EMA represents the world's leading manufacturers of medium-duty and heavy-duty trucks and truck engines. Those are the types of commercial vehicles covered under the DEP's proposal to finalize the opt-ins to California's advanced clean trucks and omnibus low NOx rules. We actively participated in the underlying California rulemaking process, and we sincerely appreciate the opportunity to present comments today. EMA and its members fully support a conversion of the commercial trucking fleet to ZEVs. We should underscore that. We fully support a conversion of the commercial trucking fleet to ZEVs. And we agree that 2045 is a reasonable target date for the broad deployment of ZEV trucks wherever feasible. EMA members are spending billions of dollars towards that end and already are producing ZEV trucks for some applications. However, to bring about our shared vision for the future, a comprehensive and coordinated state and federal strategy is required to develop and implement the widespread deployment of ZEV trucks. A critical first step in that deployment, before the DEP finalizes any opt-ins, is the establishment of a comprehensive program to invest in and develop the robust infrastructure necessary to recharge or refuel ZEV trucks. Massachusetts can and must be a leader in those broad-based efforts, which for trucks will involve longer planning and installation timelines and significantly larger public investments than for passenger cars. In addition, we all know that the cost of a ZEV truck is currently 2 to 3 times higher than for a conventionally fueled truck. And under the DEP's opt-in proposal, there is no obligation that any fleet operator buy any of the higher priced ZEV products that EMA's members would be obligated to sell under the ACT rule. As a result, and as another critical first step before opting into CARB's rules, Massachusetts must also provide sustained incentive funding to offset that significantly higher price differential. In addition, Massachusetts should set an example by requiring the purchase of ZEVs and near ZEV trucks for a portion of any state-funded commercial vehicle purchases going forward. Given the size and nature of the challenges that relate to a comprehensive infrastructure build-out and an incentivized ZEV deployment initiative, federal leadership and action is needed. The Biden administration is providing that leadership now. Later this month, the Biden administration through US EPA will be proposing new advanced emission requirements for heavy-duty and medium-duty trucks, which low NOx standards will be finalized before the end of this year. Those low NOx requirements will be followed by new lower greenhouse gas standards, what we'll call phase 3 standards, that will accelerate the growing deployment of ZEVs. That is all happening now at the federal level. Massachusetts should be a leader in advocating for those nationwide clean trucks programs. Without that coordinated push for unified federal standards, there's a significant risk that trucking fleets in Massachusetts will simply keep their older, higher emitting products longer, or will buy out of state. The adverse impacts on Massachusetts economy and environment could be significant. In light of what we will see from US EPA in the coming weeks, the finalization of the DEP's proposal should be deferred until such time as all stakeholders can evaluate the steps the federal government will be taking to build toward a ZEV-based future for the commercial trucking industry. Then the DEP, along with the other relevant state agencies and stakeholders, can supplement those federal efforts as necessary in a truly coordinated manner to leverage and accelerate ZEV truck deployments as appropriate in the Commonwealth. Not waiting to see what the federal government will do could short circuit those nationwide efforts, not advance them. Deferral also makes sense to allow the DEP to fully assess all of the CARB regulations that Massachusetts proposes to opt into. More specifically, CARB will be significantly revising the ACT rule later this year to require 100% ZEV truck sales by 2040, and CARB's Advanced Clean Fleets rule is being delayed until the end of this year as well. Accordingly, it seems clear that Massachusetts should wait for California to finalize all of the other elements of its medium-duty and heavy-duty truck program without understanding all of the actual costs, benefits, and consequences of adopting all 3 of the relevant CARB rules. The DEP cannot properly assess the impacts of following California's regulatory path as opposed to the path that the federal government will be laying out in just a couple of weeks. There are multiple other reasons why the proposed CARB rules should not be finalized, including that those rules are in fact cost prohibitive and infeasible. We will explain those other reasons in detail in the written comments we file before the close of the rulemaking record. In closing, thank you sincerely for the opportunity to speak on this matter, and we look forward to further comments.
Thank you. Benjamin Mandel.
Hi, good morning, DEP staff and fellow attendees. I'm Ben Mandel, Senior Director for the Northeast region at CalSTART, a national clean transportation nonprofit. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning in favor of the department's proposal to implement the Advanced Clean Trucks program. CalSTART applauds Massachusetts for moving swiftly to implement this regulation and supports this rule. We urge Massachusetts agencies to view this as the starting point rather than the finish line. CalSTART has more than 300 industry members, not all of whom see eye to eye on the topic of regulations. Despite concerns, we feel that regulatory requirements send a decisive market signal that calibrates investment priorities for manufacturers, fleets, and financiers alike. And during the period before the proposed rule would take effect, the Commonwealth has an opportunity to further prime the market and ensure that ACT sales targets are attainable. The ACT rule, while necessary for market development, is not sufficient by itself to achieve the ambitious net zero transformation of on-road transportation as framed out in the Massachusetts 2050 decarbonization roadmap. We offer 4 targeted recommendations for additional actions to assure the viability of the proposed regulation. First, signaling intent to adopt a fleet purchase requirement once California's Advanced Clean Fleets rule has been promulgated will ensure that manufacturers have a built-in market ready to take delivery of their zero emission innovations. Second, robust purchase incentives are critical to offset the initial cost differences of zero-emission trucks through at least the early compliance years. The More EV Trucks program is very promising and should be fully capitalized with sufficient funding to carry the market into the effective period for the ACT program. Third, coordination between electric distribution companies and the Department of Public Utilities is critical to ensure that electric trucks can be seamlessly interconnected to the grid and charged at rates that are competitive with current diesel fueling costs. Finally, accelerating adoption of the low carbon fuel standard, as recommended in the interim Clean Energy and Climate Plan for 2030, is a necessary step as a means to bring down the carbon intensity of transportation fuels by 2030. This measure is even more critical in light of the recent dissolution of the Regional Transportation and Climate Initiative program. The ACT rule will go a long way toward making sure all Massachusetts residents can breathe clean air, especially those in disadvantaged communities. But market transformation requires an ecosystem of regulations, incentives, infrastructure support, and other policy direction. The scale and urgency of the climate crisis demands an all-hands-on-deck approach. CalSTART applauds and supports DEP's proposal to implement the Advanced Clean Trucks program and applauds the Commonwealth's leadership to curb diesel emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Curatone.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, to you and members of the hearing board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Joe Curatone. I am currently the president of the Northeast Clean Energy Council, former Mayor Somerville for 18 years. I'm here today to testify in support of the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. NECEC is leading a just transition and cultivating a climate economy here in the Northeast. As you know, and we've heard and continue to hear, transportation represents the largest greenhouse gas emitting sector in the Commonwealth. I applaud the Baker and Polito administration, Secretary Pierides, EEA, and MassDEP for their leadership. Dirty pollution from transportation is a major contributor to health inequality, environmental justice that is indisputed. I, as someone who's grown up in the most densely populated city in New England, next to a secondary arterial, and Somerville, with its long history of seeing its transit go away in mid-century to adopt a highway-centric and focused transportation system where most of the motor vehicles, 85% of the trips weren't stopping our city but dumping particulates in the air, has suffered our share of health consequences. We're starting to change that. I personally suffer from respiratory illness because of the black carbon that's dumped by trucks and other heavy vehicles coming to our city. With actions like adopting the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, we have an opportunity to begin righting the wrongs of the past and building a clean future that ensures equitable transportation options for every resident. And with the Transportation Climate Initiative tabled, at least for now, it becomes even more important and urgent to take concrete near-term action to meet our emissions commitments and address the climate crisis. We don't have the luxury of time. The Northeast in our region is the fastest warming region in the country. And we have an opportunity now to drive positive change. And the Advanced Clean Trucks rule represents a key opportunity to begin reducing emissions in the medium to heavy duty transport sector. And these emissions reductions that will begin to reduce the disproportionate burden of tailpipe emissions that environmental justice communities have borne for far too long. And the Advanced Clean Trucks rule isn't just a social good, it's a market drive, as we know. And Massachusetts has shown time and time again that can be a leader. We know major companies, truck companies and motor vehicle companies are producing now vehicles, medium, light, heavy duty, that are well performing, and we have an opportunity to lead that industry. So adoption of this rule will ensure that clean transportation manufacturers offer their products here in the Commonwealth, allowing customers to make and choose clean options, making it the easy choice. And given the expected demand growth in future years, manufacturers will be looking to offer their products in markets that have signaled their commitment to the industry. So we do not have to, and we should not miss the opportunity to speed up the clean transportation transition. Our members in the Northeast Clean Energy Council are eager to deliver their clean transportation solutions and will continue to view the Commonwealth as a favorable place to do business should we adopt this rule. So I hope and pray for positive disposition and that we seize this opportunity to adopt a market-driven policy that will reduce emissions and lessen the pollution burden in our communities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Anna Vanderspeck.
Good morning. My name is Anna Vanderspeck, and I am the Electric Vehicle Program Director at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, a nonprofit organization based in Boston. I'd like to first thank the administration for moving to adopt the Advanced Clean Trucks and Heavy Duty Omnibus regulations and for this opportunity to provide comments. We at Green Energy Consumers urge adoption of ACT and HDO for two reasons. First, these two regulations are critical for mitigating climate change, bettering public health, and addressing racial inequities. Medium and heavy-duty vehicles make up only 7% of the vehicles on the road in Massachusetts, but account for a much larger percentage of our transportation emissions. 20% of greenhouse gas emissions, 46% of nitrogen oxides, and 40% of particulate matter. The health burdens of these emissions are not equally distributed. Geographically, the places with the highest particulate matter emissions from diesel vehicles, like Springfield, New Bedford, Worcester, Brockton, Greater Boston, and Lowell, also have the highest asthma rates in the state. And people of color carry the heaviest burden here. For example, people of color in Massachusetts have a 15 to 26% higher exposure to particulate matter than the state average, while white residents are exposed to 7% less particulate matter than average. Secondly, ACT and HDO bring benefits to fleet operators and society at large. At Green Energy Consumers, we educate thousands of consumers every year about the benefits of personal electric vehicles, including fuel cost savings and maintenance savings, and these operational benefits hold true for fleet operators too. Altogether, according to MJ Bradley and the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I quote, "The adoption of clean trucks rules and the resulting cleaner air could save at least $753 million and possibly more than $2 billion in health costs by 2050. And by 2050, these rules could deliver more than $800 million and $1.5 billion in benefits every year, including better public health, reduced climate risk, and consumer savings," end quote. In sum, to meet its climate goals, protect the health of its residents, and accelerate the adoption of superior technology, Massachusetts must join New York, New Jersey, Washington, Oregon, and California in adopting ACT, and California and Oregon in adopting HDO. Thank you again for this opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you. John Carlson.
Thank you and good morning. My name is John Carlson and I oversee state policy work in the Northeast at Ceres. I'm here today to comment in support of the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and Heavy Duty Omnibus rules. Ceres organizes the Business for Innovative Climate and Energy Policy Network, a coalition of over 80 major businesses, all committed to driving sustainability throughout the economy. We also coordinate the Ceres Investor Network, which includes 175 members with collectively nearly $30 trillion in assets under management. We also run a corporate electric vehicle alliance, a collaboration of 30 companies, including Amazon, DHL, JLL, IKEA, Merchant Fleet, and others, looking to completely decarbonize and electrify their fleets. The members of this alliance collectively own, lease, or operate nearly 1.3 million on-road vehicles in the United States. Our companies and investors see climate change as a significant risk, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions is an economic opportunity. So we strongly support Massachusetts' adoption of the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and the heavy-duty omnibus rules, and see these as essential components of a comprehensive plan to reduce transportation emissions. We urge the state to incorporate the large fleet reporting requirement into the ACT rule as part of this rulemaking process. As you know, medium and heavy duty vehicles are a major driver of emissions, and transportation emissions disproportionately impact low income and community of colors. Over 300,000 medium heavy duty vehicles operate on Massachusetts roads. And though that number represents approximately 7% of the total vehicles on the road, they account for 46% of the nitrous oxide and over 40% of the fine particulate matter burdening our public health. It's estimated that adoption of the ACT and HDO will save the Bay State $1.8 billion in health costs alone. We're encouraged that Massachusetts chose to include the heavy-duty omnibus in this rulemaking, and that is launch programs such as the More EV Trucks, which includes incentives to deploy less polluting trucks to environmental justice neighborhoods. However, we will continue to underline the need to deploy these vehicles in our most overburdened communities first. Separately, transportation is also a major cost center for company. Our corporate electric vehicle alliance is growing, and companies are investing in electrification because transitioning to EVs can generate cost savings over the life of a vehicle. A recent survey and analysis of 13 members of this network revealed plans to procure approximately 333,000 electric vehicles as appropriate models become available. The demand for these vehicles is there, and the Advanced Clean Trucks rule will help ensure that there is a supply. From the ACT, which you're considering now, to the complementary large fleet reporting requirement, which will pave the way for the Advanced Clean Fleet rules currently under development by CARB, we need strong policies to coordinate industry leaders and stakeholders to increase access to zero-emission vehicles, unlock cost savings and benefits, and drive market transformation at a pace and scale the private sector cannot achieve on its own. Each of these three rules, ACT, HDO, and the Advanced Clean Fleet rules, are designed to fit together, and each is made more effective when all are adopted. Our companies support electrification of the commercial, medium, and heavy-duty transportation sector because it will support a cleaner, more energy-efficient economy in Massachusetts. This rule will drive local innovation and investment in clean technology development and manufacturing, create new jobs, driving long-term cost savings in company value chains, mitigating climate risk, improving public health, and reducing healthcare costs. Increased access to cost-effective zero-emission commercial transportation options helps businesses stay competitive in a market where customers, investors, patients, students, employees increasingly expect them to lead on sustainability. This rule will accelerate the cost-effective deployment of electric, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles, allow our members to meet financial and climate goals, and significantly reduce air pollution-related health impacts across the state. We applaud Massachusetts for taking this step and look forward to working with you to continue the ambition in reducing transportation emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Paulina Muratori.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing testimony on this important topic. My name is Paulina Muratori, and I am a transportation campaign manager and policy advocate with the Union of Concerned Scientists. Today, I am testifying in support of Massachusetts adopting the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, the Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule, and the Greenhouse Gas Phase 2 update for truck engines. As you know, mobile sources are not only a serious climate issue, but they are a major source of fine particulate matter air pollution. In fact, the nearly 340,000 medium and heavy-duty trucks on the roads here in the Commonwealth are a primary culprit when it comes to this local air pollution due to their reliance on combusting diesel fuel. Though medium and heavy duty trucks and buses make up only 7% of the vehicles on our roads here in the Commonwealth, they contribute a disproportionate 46% of nitrogen oxide, 40% of fine particulate matter, and 20% of global warming emissions from all on-road vehicles. A recent study that we worked on with the Natural Resources Defense Council and MJ Bradley and Associates showed that by adopting the ACT rule along with the heavy duty NOx limits, Massachusetts could see net social benefits of over 7.5 billion through 2050. Under the ACT rule, Massachusetts will be able to ensure that a growing number of electric trucks and buses hit the road beginning in 2024, and under the HDO rule will ensure that toxic air pollution is minimized from diesel engines that remain on the road. Medium and heavy duty vehicles with zero tailpipe emissions are also becoming available in a wide variety of models and sizes, and decreasing battery and production costs means that electric trucks will reach total cost parity ownership parity with traditional combustion engine trucks in a majority of truck segments by 2025. And when charged on the average grid in the Northeast, they have 44 to 79% lower life cycle global warming emissions compared to diesel trucks. With these rules in place, Massachusetts will see a nearly 85% reduction in NOx emissions through 2050, a 27% reduction in PM emissions, and will result in hundreds of fewer premature deaths and hospital visits. This all amounts to more than 1.7 billion in savings from avoided healthcare costs. By adopting these rules, the Commonwealth will take a major step forward in solidifying concrete policy action for achieving clean air and climate goals. However, we urge you to go even further. First, Massachusetts should adopt the fleet reporting requirement of the ACT rule as soon as possible. This provision is crucial data to collect in order to have a baseline against which to measure progress, as well as to identify additional strategies in the future to further curb this pollution. Second, Massachusetts should continue to work closely with communities that are most impacted by transportation air pollution and to identify policies that will reduce pollution burdens. While the ACT and HDO rules will both lower pollution for all residents, neither rule guarantees that pollution will decrease faster in communities that most need zero emissions now. A 2019 UCS study demonstrated that communities of color in Massachusetts are exposed to disproportionately more transportation-related air pollution, with Asian American, African American, and Latino residents experiencing 26%, 24%, and 17% higher exposure than the state average, respectively. In conclusion, we commend the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for considering adoption of these crucial rules that will lead to health, climate, and economic benefits of the Commonwealth. Your leadership on this issue, along with the other states that have already adopted this rule, represents a huge step forward towards a zero-emission truck and bus future. Thank you.
Thank you. Veena Damaraj. Apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Hold on, it was perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Veena Damaraj. I'm the Director of Transportation at the Massachusetts Sierra Club. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide public comments. On behalf of our over 100,000 members and supporters in Massachusetts, I am testifying to express strong support for the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule, and the Greenhouse Gas Phase 2 regulations. As you've just heard, trucks and buses account for just 7% of on-road vehicles in Massachusetts, but they are responsible for an outsized share of vehicular pollution and emissions that harm the health of our communities. These health burdens fall most heavily on environmental justice populations, as they are often located closest to highways and other high traffic corridors. No community in Massachusetts deserves to be a sacrificed zone for the movement of goods. The good news is that the market is moving towards transitioning to electric trucks. Fleet operators like the US Postal Service, Pepsi, and Amazon already have pre-orders on thousands of electric trucks. The increase in demand has seen several traditional as well as new manufacturers like Volvo, Ford, Rivian, BrightDrop, and Nikola enter the electric truck market. Adopting the Act and HDO rules will send a strong signal to manufacturers to increase the supply of zero-emission trucks while significantly reducing new diesel truck pollution. A recent analysis by MJ Bradley and Associates, UCS and NRDC, estimates that adopting these rules will result in $7.5 billion in public health, environmental, and economic benefits to Massachusetts by 2050. To maximize these benefits, we urge you to focus on 4 actions. First, adopt these regulations within the emergency rulemaking timeline to avoid losing compliance years. Support implementation by expanding policies and programs like the More EV Trucks rebate that reduce upfront costs of electric trucks, expand charging infrastructure, and prioritize deployment of zero-emission trucks in air pollution hotspots across the state. Second, to get to more electric trucks on our roads sooner, limit early credits for manufacturers under the Act rule to 1 year. Third, we urge Massachusetts to concurrently adopt the fleet reporting requirement and lower the fleet size threshold to 5 or more vehicles. This will help capture accurate fleet-specific data, identify areas with high truck traffic, and target policies to communities that need the most relief. Fourth, we urge Massachusetts to adopt Vision Zero truck safety regulations together with the Act rule. Large vehicles are disproportionately involved in crashes, especially with pedestrians and bicyclists. Requiring trucks to have safety enhancements like side mirrors with split mirror design, backup cameras, and side guards will make our roads safer for everyone. Adopting these truck regulations will save lives, create new green jobs, and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Thank you to the staff at MassDEP for your work on these regulations and for your time and consideration today.
Thank you. Tom VanHeek.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tom VanHeek. I'm Senior Policy Advisor at Rivian, where our mission is to keep the world adventurous forever. Rivian is an independent US-based EV-only manufacturer building electric adventure vehicles in Normal, Illinois, including our R1T pickup, R1S SUV, and an electric delivery van with more to come, all of which can be counted toward medium and heavy duty ZEV requirements. Rivian's mission is made manifest in our commitment to addressing climate change. We strongly support Massachusetts' adoption of the heavy-duty omnibus and advanced clean trucks rules by emergency regulation consistent with the requirements of Massachusetts law. Our vehicles are proof that now is the time for Massachusetts to adopt this regulation. Moreover, the Commonwealth has established appropriately bold statutory requirements to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and Massachusetts cannot afford to leave any emissions reductions in the transportation sector on the table. Moving ahead with this rule is necessary. I also want to stress the value of the early credits provision of the rule. For one thing, this aligns the Commonwealth with other rules adopted across the region, but just as important, early action credits incentivize accelerated production and deployment of EVs for manufacturers that are ready to come to market now. This delivers critical air pollution and GHG reduction sooner, but can also help industry grow more quickly to mass scale production and thus move down the cost curve. This is crucial for the long-term success of the industry. While we strongly support adoption of ACT, we also believe that the scale of the climate challenge and Massachusetts' emissions reduction targets will require more than this regulation alone. We recommend complementary actions to maximize the benefits of this regulation. Specifically, Massachusetts should expedite the development of a low carbon fuel standard. LCFS policies can be powerful enablers of medium and heavy duty fleet electrification. By design, they create direct incentives for charging infrastructure deployment and its use by EVs that can help support fleet switching. This is all the more important given recent setbacks to the Regional Transportation and Climate Initiative. Secondly, we recommend that Massachusetts sustain and enhance the More EV Trucks rebate program. To support long-term fleet planning and investment decisions, Rivian recommends that the Commonwealth commit to sustained funding for more EV trucks over a period of years. Experience with other incentives like this one around the country has underscored the extraordinary demand for rebates and speaks to the need for substantial funding over a determined period of time. Once again, Rivian applauds Massachusetts' commitment to electrifying transportation and adopting these rules. We support the rule and look forward to working with you to ensure that the Commonwealth realizes its fullest benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach Kahn.
Good morning. My name is Zach Kahn. I'm the heavy duty policy lead and a senior policy advisor at Tesla. Testifying in support of Massachusetts adoption of the Advanced Clean Truck Rule. Massachusetts has been a national leader in setting ambitious climate goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And to have any chance of meeting these goals, truck operators in Massachusetts must have access to the newest models of zero emission trucks in all classes on the market. And the Advanced Clean Truck Rule is the key regulatory tool to make sure that these advanced vehicles are available to truck fleets in the Commonwealth. Tesla's mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, and it is that mission that led us to develop the Class 8 all-electric Tesla Semi. The Semi will come in 2 different models, one with 300 miles plus of range, and a second with more than 500 miles of range. The Semi will demonstrate that an all-electric truck can meet virtually any truck duty cycle when paired with the megawatt charging system that is currently being developed by the electric truck industry. Since unveiling the Tesla Semi, a significant number of fleets with substantial freight needs have placed reservations for the trucks, indicating broad industry demand for heavy-duty electric vehicles. These fleets will be deploying the Semi in a wide range of applications, including but not limited to manufacturing, retail, grocery and food distribution, package delivery, dedicated trucking, rental services, intermodal, drayage, and other applications. Companies with operations throughout North America, representing every major trucking sector and category of the economy, have reserved the Semi, ranging from food service to logistics to retail. The ACT rule will not only help to accelerate the adoption of zero-emission trucks in Massachusetts, but will ensure that there's ample supply of electric trucks of all classes available for truck operators. Most importantly, this effort will significantly reduce harmful tailpipe emissions in the Commonwealth. Given the emissions profile of diesel trucks, the ACT will have a dramatic positive impact both on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and criteria air pollution, particularly in disadvantaged and low-income communities that have traditionally borne the brunt of diesel pollution, including the adverse climate and public health impacts that come with it. By adopting the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, Massachusetts will take the next step in pushing for large-scale adoption of electric trucks by operators moving goods around the Commonwealth and across the region. We appreciate the opportunity to comment, and thank you again for your important work on this critical regulation, and look forward to submitting written comments in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Barrett.
Hi, good morning. I'm Will Barrett. I'm the National Senior Director for Clean Air Advocacy with the American Lung Association. And I'm commenting today in strong support of Massachusetts utilizing its Clean Air Act authority to move forward with the Advanced Clean Truck, Low NOx Omnibus, and the greenhouse gas rules to reduce the public health, climate change, and health equity impacts of medium and heavy-duty truck pollution. We believe that Massachusetts should act now in advance of the potential federal actions, just as other states have done. Trucking pollution is a leading source of air pollution burdens, especially in lower-income communities and communities of color overly burdened by diesel emissions. Despite representing a small fraction of all vehicles on the road, trucks contribute a major share of harmful pollution and associated disparities. The American Lung Association's State of the Air 2021 report found that hundreds of thousands of residents are impacted by unhealthy levels of ozone pollution, and that climate change is making the job of cleaning our air more difficult. Approximately 600,000 children and adults are living with asthma in Massachusetts, creating more vulnerability to ozone and particle pollution associated with heavy-duty trucks. We know that breathing ozone and particle pollution contributes to a wide range of health impacts, including asthma attacks, heart attacks, strokes, and premature death. Breathing particle pollution can also cause lung cancer. Children, seniors, and those with lung and heart illnesses are at the greatest risk, as are lower income communities and communities of color. In order to reduce these burdens, the American Lung Association strongly urges implementing this package of rules to reduce health harms and cut pollution that drives climate health risks. These rules will ensure cleaner, more durable engines and speed the critical transition to zero-emission transportation. A recent American Lung Association study into the health benefits of zero-emission transportation found that the broad transition to zero-emission cars, buses, and trucks could generate approximately $1 billion in annual health benefits in the Bay State. Moving forward now will spur real-world emission reductions and accelerate the major public health benefits of the widespread shift to cleaner trucks and zero-emission transportation. Again, these rules will save lives, reduce health impacts and disparities in exposures to carcinogenic diesel exhaust. Thank you very much for taking our comments, and we look forward to providing written comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Mathers.
Great, thank you. I'm Jason Mathers, Senior Director of Vehicle and Freight Strategy for Environmental Defense Fund, and based here in Boston. I urge the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to finalize its adoption of the Advanced Clean Truck Program and Heavy-Duty Omnibus Rule. In the US, over 40% of all Americans live in communities with unhealthy levels of air pollution. Here in Massachusetts, the need for urgent action was further demonstrated with a study that was published last month. According to this new research, more than 2,700 children in the city of Boston alone develop asthma annually from exposure to nitrogen dioxide, a key traffic-related air pollutant. Across Boston, 1 in 5 cases of childhood asthma are estimated to be attributable to this pollution. But in neighborhoods with the most traffic-related pollution, including Roxbury and South Boston, it could be up to 1 in 3. Cities across the Commonwealth are impacted by this pollution. In Lowell, there are 170 new childhood asthma cases every year attributable to this pollution. In Lawrence, 180. In Worcester, 250. In Springfield, 340. Our children deserve clean air now. Electric trucks are an important way we can reduce pollution in our neighborhoods. Today, there are over 125 zero-emission truck and bus models in production, development, or demonstration. There are models for each major segment of the heavy-duty truck vehicle market, including transit school buses, delivery vans, box trucks, and combination trucks. Every major truck manufacturer is developing at least one all-electric model. This includes established leaders such as Daimler, Peterbilt, and Mack, and emerging new companies dedicated to zero-emission vehicles such as Lion Electric and Proterra. Fleet operators are embracing these vehicles. FedEx, Amazon, and PepsiCo, as well as small fleets, including Intelligent Labor and Moving of Arlington, are among the 160 corporate fleets that are running EVs today. The rules under consideration by MassDEP provide the type of long-term performance standards that have time and again proven as the most effective tool we have for scaling the adoption of technologies to protect residents' health and reduce vehicle pollution. Finalizing these rules is the right next step. It is also critical that Massachusetts recognize the complexities fleets must manage as they transition to zero-emission vehicles. The state should follow these actions with increased direction to utilities to support the development of higher charging power systems for electric trucks, new programs and expanded incentives that prioritize the deployment of electric trucks and buses for our most polluted neighborhoods, and to help fleets and utilities plan, set a clear timeframe for completing our transition to zero-emission trucks. Finally, I want to talk about the importance of the federal action, which was referenced earlier. The most important thing Massachusetts could take to help us get strong protective federal action is to pass these rules. And this is especially critical to lock in the reductions through the ACT and HDO, given the sustained outreach by some industry trade associations to push for a weak federal standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Epstein.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Alex Epstein. Looks like camera is working. I'm from the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets, and I just wanted to briefly speak in support of the advanced clean truck and heavy duty omnibus regulations that are under consideration, and also wanted to draw a parallel that Vina earlier mentioned, that this is an opportunity to incorporate safety requirements for the trucks that are going to be increasingly decarbonized, so that other sustainable transportation modes, such as walking, bicycling, and scooting, can also be safe in conjunction with these trucks on the same roadways. The New York City Clean Truck Program, with which I've worked professionally, has included a series of Vision Zero safety enhancements as part of their clean truck program. which has been scaled up across the 5 boroughs of New York City and is now vastly scaled up. And this is a similar opportunity that can be applied at the state level in Massachusetts, which, as was noted earlier, has seen over 400 pedestrian and 45 bike fatalities since 2016, a disproportionate number of which involve large trucks that are under the purview of the ACT and heavy-duty omnibus. So please consider that technologies such as side guards, blind zone mitigation technologies, and others that are also in parallel being considered in a number of state bills, such as the Act to Reduce Traffic Fatalities, House 3549 and S 2273. That would be a synergy. I hope that that MassDEP will consider incorporating as part of the ACT rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Becca Wolff.
Hi there. I'm Becca Wolfson, Executive Director of the Boston Cyclists Union and a core organizing member of the Massachusetts Vision Zero Coalition, a statewide coalition of organizations working to prevent people from dying in traffic crashes across the Commonwealth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today, and my comments will be similar to those of Alex Epstein, who just spoke. I'm testifying in support of the ACT regulations under consideration, and I'm here seeking an addition to the rule. As one of the motivators to adopt the ACT rule here in Massachusetts is in the name of public health, I'm here to ask that you add truck safety measures to the bill. Nationwide and in Massachusetts, traffic fatalities are a public health emergency. The dangers from large trucks are not only in their emissions. Large trucks pose a disproportionate threat to people biking and walking, particularly in a dense urban core. Over the past 9 years, there have been 21 people killed while biking in Boston and Cambridge alone, not statewide. And 14 of those 21 were killed by large trucks. That's 67% of crashes that have killed someone riding a bike. It's very predictable that trucks can and will cause harm to vulnerable road users. And as you consider that number and rate, I'll also point out that the figure only includes fatal crashes. There have been many more non-fatal crashes involving trucks across the Commonwealth that are still life-altering. Nationwide, large trucks comprise 4% of registered vehicles and are involved in at least 10% of pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities. And on behalf of our more than 11,000 members, we've been advocating for safer trucks in Massachusetts since 2014. There have been bills passed at the municipal level in Boston, Cambridge, and Somerville that mandate city-owned trucks and city-contracted trucks are outfitted with side guards and additional mirrors that make trucks safer and decrease blind spots. A mirror of those municipal bills is currently in the process of being considered at the state level, where all state-owned and state-contracted trucks would have to have side guards, safety mirrors, and hopefully backup cameras as well. The policy order passed in Boston became a national leader, and now almost 24 cities across the country, possibly more, have similar policies at the municipal level, mandating some truck safety infrastructure. However, that's still only a small fraction of trucks on the road. Those safety features are typically added aftermarket and come at additional cost and inconvenience, and those safety features are no longer enough. In addition to side guards, mirrors, and cameras, safer trucks also have high vision cabs, which proliferate in Europe and especially in the UK, where they similarly agreed the danger to bicyclists and pedestrians could no longer be tolerated. Fleet operators and companies want their drivers to be safe. Drivers don't want fatalities on their hands, and people traveling on city roads want to stay alive. And we have the opportunity to put the burden of safer vehicles on the manufacturers, so the only option for new trucks on the road are zero emissions and cause zero deaths. I hope that you'll consider modifying the emergency regulations and seize this opportunity for Massachusetts to become a national leader in moving the needle on safer trucks. Massachusetts should adopt these regulations and become an advocate for zero emissions vehicles and also for Vision Zero safer vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Bianca Bowman.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Bianca Bowman. I'm representing Green Roots, a nonprofit organization that works for environmental justice for the residents of Chelsea and East Boston in Massachusetts. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of the importance of this regulation and what it will mean for our communities. You may not know much about Chelsea or East Boston, but the industrial use of our city probably directly benefits you and your Massachusetts community. Chelsea is the smallest and second most densely populated city in the Commonwealth. At just 1.8 miles, Chelsea has over 45,000 residents. 73% of us identify as a racial or ethnic minority, the majority of which are Latino or Latina like myself, and 24% live below the poverty level. In neighboring East Boston, there are 55,000 residents living in 5 square miles, 3 of which are occupied by Logan Airport, and 53% of East Boston residents identify as Latino and Latina, 17% live below the poverty level. If you have ever wondered where your road salt, heating fuel, or produce come from, before arriving at your community, they were stored along the banks of the Chelsea Creek and throughout the rest of our small city. That means that trucks carrying 400,000 tons of road salt, trucks bringing 100% of Logan's jet fuel, 70 to 80% of the region's heating fuel, and trucks bringing thousands of pounds of produce from New England Produce Center to communities all throughout Massachusetts and New England are coming in and out of our communities every minute of every day. So with the Tobin Bridge directly over our city, so many facilities for storage of these important amenities directly in our communities of Chelsea and East Boston, the services we provide to the rest of our state and region cause many burdens upon the health of our lower income community of color. The diesel fuel concentrated in our cities has caused proven health effects on our residents. In 2006, we learned that Chelsea's diesel exhaust level exceeded the EPA's threshold by 20%, and that our expected cancer cases caused by air pollution was 500 times higher than the rest of the state. Despite efforts to improve air quality in communities like ours, in 2016, the Center for Effective Government graded Massachusetts an F for exposing people of color and residents living below the poverty level to hazardous facilities. And Chelsea and East Boston were some of the hardest hit by COVID, and we know that air pollution exacerbates infection rates of COVID. Our communities have some of the highest rates of strokes, cardiovascular disease, and asthma hospitalization in the state. Environmental injustice and environmental racism like this did not just appear out of the blue. Black and brown communities like Chelsea and East Boston live in some of the most toxic, dangerous, and polluted communities, which is the result of policies and systems designed to segregate, dehumanize, and harm communities of color. Regulations like this are an imperative first step to changing that narrative. We could sit back and allow these disparities to continue, or we can advocate for regulations like this one to improve the lives and public health of people of Chelsea and East Boston, and all of the people, Black and brown included, in the state of Massachusetts. We need solutions like this, and we needed it yesterday. So thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you. Gail Miller. Gail Miller.
Yes, hi, thank you. I just had to unmute myself, I guess. Thank you for the opportunity to submit comments regarding this emergency regulation. My name is Gail Miller, and I currently serve as president of Airport Impact Relief Incorporated, an East Boston based and regional 50-plus-year-old nonprofit organization that has invested its years in providing communities with expertise and a commitment to lessen impacts of Logan International Airport. It spearheaded the soundproofing window initiative many years ago and is now engaged in an air filtration campaign to outfit all schools and homes with filters to capture pollutants from the airport and roadways that make their way into especially the older homes abutting the airport. We are pleased that this administration is moving to embrace and adopt the advanced clean trucks and heavy-duty omnibus regulations. It is not a moment too soon, given our climate dilemma. As residents living next to an international airport in an urban environment, exposure to a continuum of toxic pollutants and emissions from sources other than medium and heavy truck vehicles is an undue burden, as evidenced by the multitude of illnesses that are known in the neighborhoods. We don't have to be at the public health department to know the health impacts are prevalent. We have learned, for example, that the Logan Airport Health Study revealed hundreds of cases of asthma, for which the East Boston Neighborhood Health Clinic became engaged in a program to treat the patients, funded by the Massachusetts Port Authority for 10 years. So when thinking about the diesel trucks that have been traveling on our cities and state roads day in and day out, increasing our risks for respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, lessening their impacts would be an extremely welcome gift to our environmental justice community. We know, living next to an international airport, that we are certain to have more projects floated whereby trucks will attempt to barrel down on our highways and trucking hubs. Let's not forget that for years next door in Chelsea, we have one of the largest produce centers welcoming product from across the country by truck. From a climate perspective, transportation accounts for much of our exposure to carbon emissions. And if we are to attempt lowering these exposures, it will certainly help reach climate goals of reducing 50% of emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050. While the economy seems to be the major conversation whenever we need to address new initiatives, we need to keep in mind that our human health impacts usually get ignored in the discussions. That cost never seems to be factored into these equations. We definitely need a regional savings in healthcare costs. We as a region will realize the job creation needed for the changeover, and that is a welcome factor in the conversion of trucks. The necessity in increasing charging stations will require a network of electrical implementation, and on, as we can see with these conversions. I believe, in closing, we can conceive of the ACT rule as being a win-win for our state, and we implore you to adopt it. Thank you again for holding this hearing and for the opportunity to present comments.
Thank you. Patricio Portillo?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, good morning. This is Patricio Portillo with the Natural Resources Defense Council. So thank you to DEP staff for all your hard work on this rulemaking and for holding this public hearing today. And thank you for this opportunity to provide comments. NRDC has been involved in the development and adoption of California's clean truck rules, adoption of these rules in 5 other states, including Massachusetts, as well as the federal EPA rulemaking. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of our 14,000 members and 51,000 activists in Massachusetts in strong support of adopting the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and the Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule. Adopting these rules are absolutely critical to ensure clean air, address climate change and historical inequities, protect public health, and stimulate the economy. These standards they're fundamental. They provide a clear schedule for clean truck sales, sending a market signal and injecting certainty that will unlock additional investments in the EV ecosystem. And we're already seeing this happen in other states, such as New Jersey, that have adopted the Advanced Clean Truck Rule. Therefore, it's extremely misguided to believe that infrastructure or incentives must come first. On the contrary, you can have all of the infrastructure and incentives in the world, but unless manufacturers are required to actually produce zero-emission vehicles, very few will make their way to Massachusetts. Now, that's not to say that infrastructure investments will not need to continue happening. The state will certainly need to be building out this charging infrastructure to support a full transition to an electric truck fleet, but that's already underway and it does not need to happen overnight. The rules ramp up slowly over time, allowing for this flexible growth. Also, while it's true that there is a federal rulemaking underway, this action serves to reinforce rather than undermine the rationale for Massachusetts to move forward as quickly as possible to adopt California's truck emission standards. First off, EPA was directed to coordinate with the Section 177 leadership states that suggest that adopting California's clean truck rules will give Massachusetts a bigger seat at the federal rulemaking table. It's also very unclear what the potential federal standard will include or when it will be finalized. And even if it contains a strong zero-emission vehicle sales mandate and a low NOx rule, if they're adopted this year, because of federal lead time requirements, states would have to wait until model year 2027 at the earliest for the rules to take effect, missing out on several years of critical emission reductions and public health benefits. Now, lastly, I would encourage MassDEP to consider adopting a standalone fleet reporting requirement. The information collected would really help the department identify the dirtiest truck segments and prioritize subsequent policies to target electrification into those segments. It'll also shed light on exploitative labor practices that are occurring in the trucking industry and will again help inform future policies to address that, that rampant practice of misclassification. It also, again, sheds light on where these vehicles are operating, which will help inform subsequent infrastructure investments that, as we've heard, are so crucial to ensuring the transition to 100% zero emission vehicles. Finally, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and for the opportunity to provide testimony today in strong support of adopting these rules as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Zachary Holopeter. Zachary, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. My name is Zachary Holopeter. I live in East Boston and I'm testifying on behalf of myself. I'd like to start by thanking the Baker administration for moving to adopt the Advanced Clean Trucks and Heavy Duty Omnibus regulations. These regulations are personally important to me because airport environmental justice communities like ours need to improve our air quality by any means necessary. We are disproportionately impacted by the highway running overhead and idling trucks on our main streets heading into the city during rush hour, and short-term exposure to toxic vehicular exhaust and particulate matter gives myself and my neighbors an increased risk for respiratory and cardiovascular disease. I strongly support the ACT rule and heavy-duty omnibus regulations, and I very much appreciate the Governor's Office and the Department of Environmental Protection for pushing to adopt this. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Carlozzi.
Thank you. My name is Christopher
We seem to have lost you. You got back on mute.
Oh, I apologize. My name is Christopher Carlozzi, and I represent the National Federation of Independent Business. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
In Massachusetts, NFIB represents thousands of small and independent business owners involved in all types of industry, including manufacturing, retail, wholesale service, and agriculture. And many of those businesses utilize medium-sized trucks in their operations or rely on larger sized trucks to deliver products to their shops. We are in opposition to these regulations due to concerns on how it will impact the state's small businesses. These rules seem to negatively impact small businesses in two ways. It will directly hurt the state's truck dealerships that will have their stock impacted, as it limits the types of vehicles that will likely be available on their lots. And that stock will be set at a state by a state mandate rather than consumer demand. And those limits will result in businesses that continue planning to utilize non-electric trucks shopping elsewhere. And as we often see in Massachusetts, elsewhere usually means shoppers simply traveling across the border to New Hampshire, where consumers will now make their purchase of their vehicles they want for the operation of their business. Because some of those businesses will decide they either cannot afford the price tag of electric trucks or feel they can't perform their jobs as effectively or at the same level as they currently do with non-electric vehicles. For those businesses that will be forced to purchase higher priced electric vehicles, that additional cost will no doubt be passed along to consumers, resulting in higher priced goods or services. Will the cost of delivering goods further increase? Will the consequences be prices increasing for consumers too? We are already seeing price hikes throughout the Commonwealth due to the impact of the pandemic, and the state's recovery will certainly be prolonged for most businesses. If it costs more to bring products to store shelves, it will mean Massachusetts residents will pay more. If it costs more to purchase higher priced large trucks for construction, housing prices will be even higher for Massachusetts home buyers. The bottom line, if it becomes more expensive for the state's small businesses and a wide range of industries to purchase the trucks they need in their operation, the more it will cost consumers in Massachusetts. We must also ask if electric trucks are as effective as the vehicles used by delivery services, landscapers, builders. Will a company that provides plowing on a below zero day need to have additional vehicles operating to provide services? Will that mean higher costs for businesses clearing their parking lots, for municipalities that need to clear streets? Massachusetts is not California, and our vehicles need to operate differently because of those differences. These are real-world questions that must be asked before industry-altering regulations like this are imposed on the businesses and residents of Massachusetts. We are deeply concerned by this regulation that will not only impact truck dealerships, but countless businesses and individuals that rely on medium and larger size trucks in the Commonwealth. Thank you for this opportunity today.
Thank you. Summer Solstice Thomas.
Hi, my name is Summer Solstice Thomas, and I'm here today to represent Silent Spring Institute. Silent Spring Institute is a nonprofit research organization based in Newton, Massachusetts, and we study the links between environmental chemicals and disease with a focus on breast cancer. Air pollutants, specifically those emitted by heavy motorized vehicles, are a concern for many health endpoints, including breast cancer. Currently, 64% of all medium and heavy duty trucks on the road run on diesel, which is a main source of nitrated polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which have been identified as priority chemicals for breast cancer risk. Our research demonstrates that 6 nitrated polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are potent mammary carcinogens in rodent models and are likely breast carcinogens for humans as well. Additionally, it is well documented that air pollution from vehicular air traffic disproportionately affects low-income communities of color, which contributes to various socioeconomic health disparities, including adverse birth outcomes, heightened cancer risk, asthma, and increased COVID-19 severity. These disparities are of concern to residents of Massachusetts specifically. Recent research from Boston's Metropolitan Area Planning Committee found that over 50% of Boston's Latinx population and 45% of Boston's Asian and Black population live in areas with the top 20% of traffic air-related air pollution, compared to only 30% of Boston's white pollution. Meanwhile, recent data released from Office of Attorney General Maura Healey's office illustrates how the Massachusetts communities of color have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19 pandemic are also those with the highest level of air pollution, which is a relationship that research out of Harvard and other universities have shown not to simply be coincidental. Vehicular emissions from diesel-powered trucks are a significant public health concern and increase the risk of adverse health outcomes, including cancer, and exacerbate socioeconomic health disparities. This February marks the month of National Cancer Prevention Month, as well as Black History Month, and we hope that this panel can take these rules into effect as soon as possible and honor the spirit of these months and what they represent and the justice that they can bring. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you. Brett Barry.
Hi, good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to testify this morning. My name is Brett Barry. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for Clean Energy, and we are North America's largest provider of renewable natural gas in the transportation sector. And I'm here today to testify against the ACT rule as proposed and to suggest a modification. While the adoption of California Air Resource Board regulations has been a standard practice for many states, this proposed rule is not an emissions regulation, but rather a narrowly crafted sales mandate, which makes this rule both unique and problematic for 4 main reasons. Number 1, Massachusetts does not have California's low carbon fuel standard. Second, heavy-duty electric trucks are not currently a viable alternative to diesel and are largely unavailable. Third, heavy-duty vehicle recharging has significant hurdles. And lastly, to tackle climate change now, we need an all-the-above approach. We are recommending that the Department of Environmental Protection modify the proposed rule by adopting the traditional definition of the term near zero in order to include low carbon and carbon negative compliance options. As currently drafted, for this rule to be successful, the electric vehicle industry, specifically in the heavy duty sector, will have to achieve the following trifecta. Number 1, EV truck adoption rates will have to advance at a pace that greatly exceeds the electrification of the light duty sector that we have seen over the past few years. Second, the cost of battery metals must substantially decrease, even though the price of metals is currently trending higher. Third, recharging infrastructure must be built at a record pace, along with major costly electrical grid upgrades, including potential new generation capacity. California has already proceeded down this path in 1990 when they created a mandate for the sale of light-duty electric vehicles. The mandate called for 10% of light-duty vehicles sold to be sold in the year 2010 to be all electric, which to this day has still not even been achieved. Coupling the ACT with a fleet purchase requirement will only compound the problem, burdening the goods movement industry with an electric truck purchasing requirement before reliable and affordable trucks and a network of heavy-duty recharging stations are available, sets the stage for a statewide economic quagmire. California adopted an LCFS in 2009, which supports a plethora of clean fuel technologies and has invested billions of dollars in clean vehicle incentives. LA Metro alone has estimated that it will require at least $1.5 billion to transition to electric buses. Massachusetts is positioned very differently because it lacks many of the policies supporting the electric vehicle market, which California has had in place for years. Even under these optimal conditions in California, electrification has barely achieved a foothold in the light-duty market and remains all but absent in the medium and heavy-duty space. Transportation electrification in the heavy-duty sector have certainly made advances, but remain decades away from truly being a viable alternative to diesel. In 2017, Tesla unveiled their Class 8 semi, but 5 years later, it still remains unavailable. The options that currently exist are largely for demonstration projects and not for full-duty service. While EV sales staff may paint a picture of decreasing costs, the reality is quite different. In a November 2021 interview, Daimler Truck CEO Martin Daum stated, "The first truth is, in heavy-duty commercial vehicles, you need such a huge amount of energy, meaning you need such large batteries that such a truck always will cost significantly more than a combustion engine-powered truck. This problem is further," end quote, "this problem is further compounded by the rising costs of the batteries themselves." The chief executive of Benchmark Mineral Intelligence in October 2021 told Reuters, quote, "The market may have to reposition itself for a period of rising battery cell prices, a new phenomenon for an industry conditioned to expect year-on-year falls," end quote. A recent study by Gladstein, Neandros and Associates determined that the Schneider Trucking Company would save $554,000 on fuel costs annually by converting its 42 truck fleet in Stockton, California to electric. What the study also found is that the recharging infrastructure would be 16 times more than the fuel savings at $8.9 million. To tackle climate change now, we need an all-the-above approach. Leading policymakers and fleets are acknowledging the need for an approach which is broader than electric vehicles. Many leading fleets are adopting low carbon to carbon negative fuels such as renewable natural gas. UPS operates thousands of RNG trucks, and Amazon just announced that they have deployed their 1,000th RNG truck earlier last month. LA Metro and New York MTA, the two largest public transit fleets in the nation, both have significant investments in RNG buses and combined operate over 3,000 of them. RNG heavy-duty vehicles have similar performance as diesel and are available for wide-scale deployment now. The refueling infrastructure is largely in place and mostly funded by the private sector. In 2020, CARB certified RNG is the first and only carbon negative fuel based on the weighted average under their LCFS program. RNG is able to achieve this status because it is created by capturing greenhouse gas emissions that would otherwise be released into the atmosphere. So in closing, our recommendation, in order to increase the likelihood that Massachusetts' proposed ACT will transition the transportation sector off of diesel and for engine manufacturers to be able to meet their compliance requirements, we propose the creation of a safety net. This safety net would allow other clean fuels to participate if zero emission compliance is not feasible. To establish this safety net, Clean Energy recommends the Department of Environmental Protection modify the proposed rule by adopting the traditional definition of the term near zero in order to include low carbon and carbon negative compliance options. The definition that was created for the California ACT is limited to zero emission capable hybrids. Under the traditional definition, near zero means engines which are certified to achieve CARB's optional low NOx standard of 0.02. This standard represents a 90% reduction in NOx emissions from the current federal standards, and in-use testing shows a 95% reduction. While not a carbon standard, it would allow low carbon to carbon negative fuels like RNG to participate while also achieving significant NOx reductions. This type of policy would increase the rule's chance of success. Massachusetts could then advance their electrification efforts without the risk of foregoing emissions reductions in the near term should EV technology in the heavy duty sector not advance as quickly as some expect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Diana Vasquez.
Hi, good morning or afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to comment. My name is Diana Vasquez, and I am a Master's of Public Health student in Environmental Health at Boston University. But before even returning to school, I've just been a resident of Massachusetts for more than 6 years, and I'm here testifying in my individual capacity in support of Massachusetts adopting the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and the Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule. As a public health professional in training, I'm very aware of the need to reduce air pollution from trucks and wholeheartedly believe Massachusetts should act swiftly on this issue. Medium and heavy duty trucks pose a serious public health issue for Massachusetts. Even short-term exposure to nitrogen oxides and particulate matter can have adverse health effects and increased risk for respiratory and cardiovascular disease. And the issue, only gets compounded and increases the risk of death when you add COVID-19 to the equation, which is usually housed in the respiratory system of an individual. I'd like to thank the DEP's position on adopting these rules, because as a recent report from UCS, NRDC, and MJ Bradley and Associates shows, if Massachusetts adopts both the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and the Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule, the Commonwealth could see more than 350,000 zero-emission trucks on the road by 2050. These programs could also bring over $7.2 billion in public health, environmental, and economic benefits to our state in that same timeframe. The Advanced Clean Truck Rule is a key step in the right direction. By supporting and adopting this regulation, you'll be demonstrating your commitment to cleaner air and a more equitably healthy future for all communities. In Massachusetts, Black and Brown communities tend to face higher rates of exposure to diesel exhaust, as we heard today. Just an example is East Boston. Now is the time for Massachusetts to make this commitment. And I hope to see the state even go further by taking the lead from environmental justice communities as to what they would like to see in this space, especially in terms of achieving mandatory emissions reductions in pollution burdened communities above and beyond what the ACT and HDO rules will do on their own. These communities have been facing the brunt of our inaction for far too long. The negative impact on these communities' health and well-being should not be acceptable. It's only just for these folks to have a seat at the table. So thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Tanya Del Rio.
Hi, good morning, and thank you so much for having me today. I am an East Boston resident, mom of 2 kids, and also I'm a candidate running for city council here. And I wanted to share that I'm very, very excited and in support of the Commonwealth adopting California's Advanced Clean Trucks and Heavy Duty Omnibus regulations. Because I believe they're going to bring environmental and public health benefits to all of our communities here. As some of my neighbors have said before, we are an environmental justice community here in East Boston, burdened in many ways by the airport and by pollution coming from trucks coming through Route 1 and by the many industrial activities that happen in our periphery. And so we are disproportionately impacted. Transportation pollution disproportionately impacts communities like ours because we're also located near highways, near corridors or hubs. And we are experiencing and inhaling more pollutants than people in other parts of the state. So for us, this would be one way to advance environmental justice and the commitments that the Commonwealth has already made for communities like mine. We also are worried because transportation is the largest source of carbon emissions and air pollution here. So we think that measures like this one could really reduce that and in turn reduce the high asthma rates that we see in my neighborhood. Now, as a mom of 2 kids, I think that the long-term impact and the ability for us to be able to provide them with a livable, sustainable community is in our hands. And regulations like these could really help us move forward in that direction. So I thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. That's everybody I had on my list. Is there anybody that I missed that indicated that they wanted to testify? Okay, and now we don't seem to have anybody on the phone, so I think that may be it for testimony.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Once again, has everyone presented or testimony wishes to do so?
I have signed up.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
Oh, let me get in a different room. I had signed up to testify. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Louise Hetzler, and I live in Westboro, and I am in support of these measures. It's a long time coming. I have been an environmental activist for many years. I grew up in Methuen, next to Lawrence and Lowell. My parents had a store in Lowell, Lowell Auto and Paint Supply, and commuted in from Methuen to Lowell every day to work there. And I'm familiar with, as a child growing up in Methuen, in the summertime, there were days where it was, the air was unsafe to breathe. My mother was born in Lowell. My grandmother lived in Lawrence. So I'm familiar with the Lowell Lawrence area from childhood. And even then, pollution from cars and trucks was a problem. I'm a environmental songwriter also. So I'm going to just sing a song that I wrote in 1993, almost 30 years ago. And it's called The Earth Must Heal. So it's just a very short song. From the mountains above to the valleys below, the earth must heal. What we reap is what we sow. The earth must heal. We all must do our share to clean the water and the soil and the air. We must become aware and act to show we care. From acid rain and what we dump down the drain, the earth must heal. From summer smog and pesticide fog, the earth must heal. Spray poisons from the sky, and the fish will die. Spray poisons on the trees, and it will kill the bees. From chemical soil and dumping motor oil, the earth must heal. From pollution in the breeze and lawn care sleaze, the earth must heal. We cannot stand aside and watch this downward slide. Each of us must try. We must act fast or the earth will die. To dominate the earth is not our right of birth. The earth must heal. So live in harmony with nature and be free. The earth must heal. Come on along and join in this song. Say it on the air and pray it in a prayer. We must begin to right the wrong. The earth must heal. Let's hope the earth can last that long. The earth must heal. Most of us know that the problem is real. The earth must heal. Now let's act on how we feel, and the earth will heal, and the earth will heal.
Did we lose her or?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Sorry.
here. I finished
you're
my song.
done. Okay.
I finished my song. That's my testimony.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you. I wrote that in 1993, so almost 30 years ago. So it's nothing new, right? We've had this problem for a while. It's way past time that we addressed it, and I thank you all so very much. I should add that the Green Energy Consumers Alliance, that's how I got my electric. I have an electric car. I went to one of their information sessions and saw electric vehicles. I think it was in Worcester, and they had a question and answer time. And I asked a question that's very interesting. This was probably about 7 years ago. I said, do you think there'll ever be an electric RV? And the person on the panel said, no, I don't think we'll ever be an electric RV. Well, Winnebago has just introduced a concept vehicle, an electric Winnebago. And so now with these trucks, these box trucks, I see a future where the box truck design will be retrofitted or made into RVs, and we'll have total electric, non-polluting RVs. We could go around the country. My dream for many years, go around the country to national parks and sing my songs in my electric Winnebago. Who knew? But now there is an electric Winnebago. So I am all charged up, pun intended, I guess, for this future, this electric future. And I love my Bolt, my 2019 Bolt. I love it. I love not having to go to the gas station. So anyway, thank you for doing all you're doing. And I'm excited about the future.
Thank you so much. Once again, has anyone presented oral testimony wish to do so before we end the hearing? Do we have a hand raised? Gail Miller?
Yes, I'd like to present some testimony that apparently Chris Markey couldn't get into the hearing. So may I read his testimony?
Sure.
All right, let me try to find it quickly right here. Oh, dear. Okay. All right, so I haven't had the chance to read it previously, so I'm going to just give it a go. All right, I am grateful for the opportunity to speak about the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule. It is an important privilege enjoyed here, but not everywhere, for any citizen, regardless of their race or income, to be able to express their opinions to policymakers for consideration. In 1869, a well-educated and forward-thinking Massachusetts legislature established the first state board of health and vital statistics in the nation. They did this recognizing that it is all government's role to protect the life and health of their people. Since that time, our state has gone on to adopt a long list of sanitary laws and building codes to address poor social and environmental conditions, with the understanding that public health problems were not a matter of personal failing, but were in fact a communal responsibility and burden. Today, we have a chance to once again answer the basic call to action through adopting forward-thinking rules to limit the deplorable air quality conditions suffered in our urban core by the hardworking people in our environmental justice communities, who comply with our social compact and work tirelessly to better themselves, but live lives breathing polluted and dangerous air. We have all seen the impact that poor respiratory health has wreaked on environmental justice populations in the communities of East Boston and Chelsea. Air quality is the new sanitary crisis, and our social awakening needs to start today with adoption of the ACT rule, which will reset the trajectory of our urban air and continue our long history of protecting the life and health of our people. Thank you. That's his statement.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, last call.
Now there's a hand up, Marianne Babinski.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Marianne Babinski from Westfield, Mass. And I'm a former city councilor. And I'm just going to make this short because I'm going to hand in some written comments. But I just wanted to say before you close the meeting that I want to thank the MassDEP and everyone who spoke today in support of this new act rule and the and anything that will help to alleviate the issues of climate change and helping environmental justice populations and other populations who have been exposed to these emissions over the years. So I appreciate everything that was said. We have had some wonderful suggestions given here, and I hope that we can move forward on this quickly. So I'm going to make it short, and I want to say that I will also be handing in some written comments. So thank you very much for all of you who put this together and giving us an opportunity to speak and give our concerns and comments relative to this new act rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Jenny, do we have any?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Last call. Anybody on the phone, Jenny?
No.
Okay. So I want to thank all of you who testified today, as well as all those who attend this online hearing without testifying. The testimony presented at this hearing or submitted by the comment deadline will be considered by the department before making the regulation permanent. Notice of availability of the permit regulation and department's response to all relevant comments raised during the public comment period will be emailed to all parties who have participated in the public review process and will be available to other interested parties. There being no further testimony, I hereby close this online hearing at 11:40 a.m. on February 1st, 2022. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.